Well, good morning. I'm back with another one. I'm so sleepy. I was gonna go to sleep, but then I realized, it's time for us. You better stock up on food and water because if the port workers strike, the stores is gonna be empty. There's not gonna be anything to move. Those containers are going to sit on the ocean. Food is gonna spoil and rot. So you need to stock up on food and water and make sure you have your basic supplies that you need at least 30, 60 days because you don't know how long this strike could last. And Biden and Harris could stop this strike. Give the port workers more money. You know, they have the authority and the power to stop it, but they haven't done one thing, which is as usual. And it's gonna be very interesting what people gonna do when they run out of goods and they're not able to get food, formula, and things of that nature. If your car needs to be repaired, you won't be able to get those things because the parts mainly are made in China. Are just gonna be sitting there. We in some very interesting times, but this is the coming collapse of America. Babylon the Great is falling. Whew, whew. I'm sorry, so let me get through this. Uh, and I'm full of mucus. Let me see. Ports seek order to force dock workers to the bargaining table as strike looms at Eastern Gulf ports. With a strike deadline looming, the group representing Eastern Gulf Coast ports is seeking a federal agency to make the Longshoremen's Union come to the bargaining table to negotiate a new contract. The U.S. Maritime Alliance says it filed an unfair labor practice charge with National Labor Relations Board, alleging that the International Longshoremen's Association is not bargaining in good faith. The alliance said in a prepared statement Thursday that it filed the due to the ILA's repeated refusal to come to the table. They're not even coming to the table and bargain on a new master contract. The ports are asking for immediate relief in order requiring the union to resume bargaining. In an email, the NLRB said it's investigating the complaint. It's unlikely that the board will make a decision until well after the strike deadline. The NLRB says typically it takes 7 to 14 weeks to decide on the merits of the charge. The NLRB request comes just 4 days before the ILA 6 year contract with the ports expires, and the union representing 45,000 dock workers from Maine to Texas says it will go on strike 12:01 a.m. on Tuesday. I don't know about you, but I will be down there. I'm gonna stock up on all my meat, stock up on about 5, 6 more cases of water. I'm gonna be prepared. The two sides haven't bargained since June in a dispute largely over wages and a union proposed ban on increased automation of port cranes, gates, and trucks that could cost jobs. USMX has been clear that we value the work of the ILA and have great respect for its members. We have shared a history of working together and are committed to bargaining. The union called the NRLB filing another publicity stunt from the alliance and said that the foreign-owned shipping companies it represents earn billions of dollars and take money out of the U.S. The companies, it said in a release, failed to adequately compensate the ILA longshore workforce for their labor. The ILA accused shipping companies that we are part of the alliance of being unprepared for contract talks when the two sides meet more than 2 years ago. In early bargaining, industry analysts say the union sought 77% pay increases over 6 years to make up for inflation. Right, right, because due to inflation, it's eating our money, right, and give workers a chunk of the billions made by shipping companies since the coronavirus pandemic. The union says both sides had communicated multiple times in recent weeks, but a stalemate remains because the Maritime Alliance is offering a pay increase that's unacceptable. Port workers now earn a base pay of $39 an hour or just $81,000 a year, but with overtime and other benefits, some may increase to over $200,000 annually. Neither the union nor the ports will discuss pay levels, but a 2019 oh, shoot, maybe I got it over here. But a 2019-2020 report by the Waterford Commission, which oversees New York Harbor, said about a third of the longshoremen based there made 200,000 or more. Mhm. The ILA has disputed claims it's attributed to the alliance, and the union's demands amount to the wage increase of over 75% over the life of the contract. Deceiving the public with misleading calculations is not going to help get an agreement with the ILA, President Harold Dogger said in a statement issued on Monday. The union has said shippers have made billions since the pandemic. Copenhagen-based Maersk, among the world's largest container shipping companies, made more than 50 billion in profits over the past 4 years. Earnings, though, dropped substantially in 2023 as pandemic-era consumer demand eased and brought sky-high freight rates back down. A strike would shut down as many as 36 ports that handle nearly half of the cargo going in and out of the U.S. That's why you need to stock up on food and water. If a strike occurs, it will be the first strike since 1977. So the items that will be affected is from electrical equipment to footwear, food, bananas, auto parts. Everything will be affected. A strike Tuesday would occur just 2 weeks after the Federal Reserve cut interest rates for the first time since the pandemic. The Fed's decision coincided with moderating inflation. It favored consumer inflation gauge fell 2.2% in August. I can't tell, the lowest level in 3.5 years. An extended strike could again drive prices higher. Yes, it is. Gas, everything gonna be higher, and potentially meaning a stumbling block on the Fed rate cut path. A port strike will raise global freight rates, which are in a prolonged slump. At least in short term, that would benefit shippers, but raise costs for customers and consumers. So what's going to be hurt by this? Like I said before, from electrical equipment to footwear. That means if you out of power and we don't have the parts, well, you're gonna be out longer, right? Cars and auto parts sit near the top of the list. European-made automobiles traditionally ship through East Coast ports. No U.S. port handles more passenger vehicle imports than the Port of Baltimore. Ain't that some shit? I didn't know that. Jason Miller, a professor at Michigan State University, said in a recent social media post that shifting those banana imports to the West Coast ports or flying them on planes isn't economically feasible, adding that you can't front load a perishable product. Now, this is where I want to go. Top Biden administration official. Oh man. Okay, top Biden administration officials, including Transportation Secretary Pete Buttigieg, Acting Labor Secretary Julie Su, and Lyle Bernard, Director of National Economic Council, met with USMX members on Friday, urging them to negotiate ahead of a contract expiring. Excuse me. Experts say a shutdown could severely hamper the flow of goods and raise shipping costs. Any spike in such expenses could be passed on to consumers just as U.S. inflation normalizes, and even potentially hinder the Federal Reserve at its final pivot of lowering interest rates. Hmm. A total of 14 ports and 25,000 workers would be affected. And these ports are, let me see if it's on this website. Baltimore, Baltimore, Boston, Charleston, South Carolina, Jacksonville, Florida, Miami, Florida, Houston, Mobile, Alabama, New Orleans, New York, New Jersey, Norfolk, Virginia, Philadelphia, Savannah, Georgia, Tampa, Florida, and Wilmington, Delaware. But because of the economic activity in port touches a range of businesses such as warehousing and transport, the fallout from work stoppages could put more than 100,000 employees temporarily out of work if they go on strike. Another 100,000 employees would on work stoppage, according to economists. Now, the labor union president for the Procore said, mark my words, we'll shut them down October 1st if we don't get the kind of wages we deserve. Harold Dargett, president of the IAS, said in an earlier month. And I'm going to play his video. Now, the ports that could close in a strike handle more than 68,000 of all containerized exports in the U.S. and roughly 56% of containerized imports, according to industry data. So even a short strike would cause disruption in regional trade flows. A strike would reduce U.S. economic activity by between 4.5 billion and 7.5 billion for every week it continues to strike, according to Oxford Economics. This is bad. This is bad. Should a strike persist longer than a month, some companies could face shortages of parts and other inputs. Much of raw materials that go into a range of products flow from the East and Gulf Coast ports such as cotton, wood, copper, the auto and pharmaceutical industry, our medicine, which maintain lean inventories, could be affected while port shutdowns in Miami. Hey, I didn't even get all that. Let me see. While port shutdowns in Miami and Norfolk could affect tobacco companies. In addition, a strike could hamper shipments of products such as bananas, manufacturing components, plywood, interrupting the flow of both consumer goods and industrial parts for factories. Fresh meat and other refrigerated food could spoil, and it will spoil, resulting in shortages and increased prices. Y'all better stock up on food and water. This is serious. Hmm. Let me see. So they saying that consumers may not see this soon because companies have been shipping ahead of time trying to stock up due to this upcoming strike. They're saying imports to U.S. ports are running 10% ahead of where they were last year, indicating that some cargo have been shipped in expectations of a strike. Many retailers have already taken steps to mitigate the potential impact of a strike by bringing in products early or shifting products to the West Coast. Now, this is where the Biden administration and Harris could do something. They terrible. If a strike were deemed to threaten national health or safety under the Taft-Hartley Act, President Joe Biden could seek a court order for an 80-day cooling off period. Although Biden administration officials tell CBS News that the U.S. Labor Department is monitoring the situation and has been in touch with both sides, there are currently no plans to get involved in the talks. We never invoked Taft-Hartley to break a strike and not considering on doing so now, says the White House spokesman. By contrast, the Biden administration has in recent years intervened to resolve potential disruptive labor disputes. So maybe because it's so close to the election, this is the way to cause chaos as I did in the um no, what was that video I did? That strategy. Oh my God, I can't even think of the Cloven Pitting strategy to create chaos. So they not intervening in the strike, while many Americans may go hungry because ain't nothing gonna be on the shelves. In 20, see, this is what I'm saying. 2022, Mr. Biden, they don't even call him President Biden. They say Mr. Biden and Congress stepped in to prevent a railroad strike with the president signing legislation crafted by lawmakers to impose a tentative deal on dozens of unions representing 115,000 workers. And in 2023, Acting Labor Secretary Julie Su played a key role in brokering a deal to avert a strike and broker a new labor deal for West Coast dock workers. Now, this is the East Coast and Gulf Coast dock workers. The union's leverage is also stronger ahead of the presidential election as candidates vie for the labor vote and with visions of clogged ports and product shortage during the pandemic still in voters' minds. If ever there was a time that labor can get what they want, it is now. However, if the strike lasts for several weeks, the odds of government involvement in negotiation will rise, especially with the presidential election rapidly approaching. The potential strike at Eastern Gulf Coast ports is unlikely to trigger any major economic disruption because we have strongly suggested that this close to election, despite denials ahead of time, President Biden will have little choice but to step in and invoke back to work legislation. I disagree. It's gonna be disastrous. Everything they touch spoils. It falls apart. Now Costco been planning ahead. Costco put in contingency plans in case of this strike. They went to pre-shipping some products to get in holiday goods early. They even went to flying stuff in. Costco says we done several different things that we could to get holiday goods in ahead of this time frame and looked at alternative plans that we would execute with moving goods to different ports and coming across the country if needed. A prolonged strike could result in shortages in bananas, coffee, cocoa, and which would make grocery prices go up. It could also mean lost export sales of agricultural imports, beef, pork, chicken, and eggs. Now, this report says brace for empty shelves, rising prices if pork workers strike. The Retailer Industry Leaders Association said in a statement that retailers view this strike and its imminent disruption as a self-inflicted wound to the U.S. economy. Oh shoot! Oh shoot! J.P. Morgan estimated that for each day the ports are shut down, it will take roughly 6 days to clear the backlog. Analysts peg the economic impact of the strike to about 5 billion per day. Even though retailers have made contingency plans to minimize its efforts, the longer a work stoppage goes on, the harder it will be to do so. Several experts told Fox Business that any disruption in shipping and supply chains often leads to product shortages, which drives prices up. Right, that's a no-brainer. Importers are actively implementing strategies to manage these risks, yet these solutions often come with their own high expenses, inevitably impacting consumer prices. Let me see. Discretionary products, particularly luxury goods and recreational goods, are expected to be the most affected due to their high price electricity. The significant repercussions would be retail stockouts, which that means they're going to be empty shelves, and plant slowdowns, especially as we approach the holiday season. Okay, let me get to these videos because it's going to be, I'm about to go to bed. I think I got them ready. Do, 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 do. Man, I had this ready. I don't know. I had this all ready to go. I'm almost there. Okay, here we go.
Money Watch, at least 25,000 dock workers at East and Gulf Coast ports could walk off the job next week, impacting nearly half of the country's imports and possibly sending prices higher for consumers. Negotiations between the workers' union and the employers face a Tuesday deadline. Nancy Chen shows us how the ripple effect could affect what you buy in stores.
Oh, we're stacked to the brim, produce all the way up to our ceiling to make sure we have what we need. I've never seen it like this.
Anthony Serafino is running out of space at his company's global distribution center in New Jersey.
If there's a strike happens, what happens immediately in this facility?
So we are stockpiled with some inventory for a few days, hopefully a few weeks.
It's one of the many preemptive measures his business and others are taking to prepare for a potential walkout.
Day one of the strike, the supermarket shelves will be filled. But if the strike lingers on, we could see a position where we start to see empty shelves. So that's every retailer's nightmare.
Dock workers from Boston to Houston and 14 ports total along the East and Gulf Coast could be walking off the job. And the union's first strike since 1977. The sticking points? Right now, workers make between $20 and $39 per hour. According to a source familiar with the negotiations, the union wants annual raises of $5 an hour, while management has countered with half that. The union is also fighting the increasing use of automation, which they say could take away jobs.
What will the impact be on consumers?
We could see price increases to offset the supply chain cost increases. Also, I think we could see longer delivery times.
Can even one day make such a huge difference?
One day, not so much, especially with some of the preemptive measures that have been taken a week, several weeks, in fact. That's where we really see the ripple effect.
That's especially true for items like produce.
I always say our stuff does not get better with age. It's not wine. It gets worse. So there's only so much inventory you can stack.
Now, the White House does have some authority to step in and pause this strike or potential strike. A Biden administration official tells CBS News the Department of Labor is monitoring the situation and has been in touch with both sides, but there are no plans to get involved with the negotiations at this time.
All right, Nancy, so the holidays are coming up. How should shoppers prepare for this potential strike?
Yeah, this is not something you need to run out for and start stockpiling items. A lot of the holiday merchandise is already in store warehouses right now. But the supply chain expert we spoke to said if the strike happens and it goes on for a few weeks, that's when there could be an impact. So maybe just be a little vigilant in ordering items early if there's something specific you want to get.
Another reason to start early.
I
Nancy.
try to start early every year, never do. Another reason.
You better stock up on food and water. That's what I'm telling you.
We're days away from a potential strike by 45,000 dock workers at more than 24 ports along the East and Gulf coasts. Negotiations remain at a standstill, with half of the nation's cargo in limbo. Trucking companies are scrambling to move products off ships before things potentially grind to a halt on Tuesday. And now major shipping companies say they will be slapping a port disruption surcharge on all cargo coming to or from these terminals if a strike does go through. Joining me now is American Trucking Association's President and CEO, Chris Beer. Chris, great to have you. Thanks very much for being here. What's your reaction to this, and where do you think this is going?
Well, Maria, thanks for having me. I think the impact, if this strike occurs next Tuesday, is going to be significant, not just on the economy, but Americans, everybody that's in need of goods each day are going to feel the impact that this is going to have. We're talking 36 ports in the East and Gulf Coast that are represented here. 5 of the top 10 in the country are going to shut down on Tuesday. We're moving 12,000 trucks daily at Port of New York, New Jersey.
Wow.
This is very significant, especially on farmers. We're talking nearly half of the goods exported out of our ports come from these East Coast ports. We're talking produce, poultry, cotton. This is very significant on our farmers. That produce is going to be felt first in week 1 if this were to occur. People are going to have limited choice, and they're going to pay a lot more for it. So I appreciate you paying attention to this, because it's coming.
Well, this is a great point that you're making. So produce gets hit first. And I was thinking that the real impact would be inflationary, because obviously the supply-demand dynamics leads to higher prices for things. We're just trying to get inflation down, and perhaps we see another spike as a result of this.
Absolutely, and trucks are the glue in all of this. Whether you move it on truck or rail, trucks are still going to move that last mile. And we're talking, large companies, but also the medium and small companies, independent contractors, owner-operators. They're going to get hung out to dry if these ports shut. So beyond the 85,000 ILA workers, we're talking thousands of other workers that support the supply chain. It's going to take a long time after a week to 2 weeks of shutdown for the economy to recover. So inflation is definitely an outcome from this.
Yeah, so if the truckers take on more load, doesn't that mean we see an impact to gasoline prices? I mean, oil prices have come off of the highs in the last couple of months. Does that reverse?
Absolutely. I think you're going to see repercussions that are going to last. So every week is about a month, 2-3 weeks, push out into a quarter to 2 quarters. You could see this spilling well into 2025. Having real repercussions. If the longer it plays out, the more impact you're going to have. So 36 ports, East Coast, Gulf Coast, this is very significant to the American economy. You can't reroute all this through the West Coast.
Right.
So shutting down for terms and conditions that are completely out of reach, 70% pay increase, that's what the ILA is asking for. I think you and I would love a 70% pay increase, but that's not reality. So they need to come to the table, they need to get reasonable, and they need to get a deal.
Well, the last time the Biden-Harris administration got involved in the strike negotiations, the workers got what they wanted. So I wonder where this goes. Obviously the timing was on purpose, intentional timing right before the election. I'm wondering if, in fact, you do see Biden or Harris intervene here and perhaps give the workers what they want. How does this play out?
Well, if they're consistent, they're not going to come to the table. They haven't yet, and we're 5 days out. So this is really significant in terms of leadership. We've got a president, vice president, and an acting secretary of labor that have walked a picket line for the UAW. They are already in the pocket of big union bosses, and they've stated that. So if you're USMX representing the 36 ports, you have no incentive to come to the table if it's led by this administration, because they've already shown their cards. They're already in the pocket of labor.
Yep.
So there's no way that you can mediate with credibility. That's not leadership. We need it. We need it now.
That's a great point. Chris, real quick before you go, what is your assessment of the economic situation today, and how does that worsen should a strike happen?
Well, I think week over week is how you measure this. I was involved in the Taft-Hartley in 2002 when the West Coast port shut down for nearly 2 weeks, and we measured in advance the impact that shutdown was going to have week over week. So when I say a week equals a month, 2 weeks, 3 weeks equal a quarter, you could see this spill well into 2025. The ramifications
Wow.
of just the supply chain, including
Wow. To
trucking, but the entire
2025. Oh, we in
economy,
trouble.
choice will be limited and prices are going to be higher. So that's not good news going into an election, going into the holidays. This administration needs to get to the table and broker a deal right now.
Wow. All right, Chris, great information from you, and we so appreciate your
Wow.
time.
He said 2025.
U.S. economy is coming very close to getting absolutely destroyed because of the potential strike of 45,000 union workers at key seaports on the U.S. East Coast and Gulf Coasts. And essentially, this strike is scheduled to begin on October 1st and could bring vital trade arteries to a standstill, affecting everything from food imports to vehicle shipments, and might have ramifications just weeks before the nation's presidential election. So in this video, I'm going to be breaking down what this strike means, how it could affect the U.S. economy, and why it could cost an estimated $5 billion per day if this strike goes down. Okay, so here's the basics of what's happening. The International Longshoremen Association, or the ILA, is a union representing 45,000 dock workers. They are facing a contract expiration on September 30th. And they are in negotiations with the United States Maritime Alliance, or again, the USMX, which represents port employees from Maine to Texas. So the primary sticking point is pay. And if these negotiations fail, we could see a massive strike. And this would be the first strike by the ILA, or again, the International Longshoremen Association, since 1977. And again, it's happening at a critical time for the U.S. economy and global trade. Now, the ports in question handle around half of all U.S. imports. That includes a wide range of goods, from bananas and clothing to cars and machinery. And these ports serve as vital gateways for trade, and a strike would create weeks-long backlogs, slow down shipments, and likely cause shortages and price hikes. And as you'll see, the potential consequences are far-reaching and touch multiple industries. So let's talk about this $5 billion per day estimate the strike could cost everyone. Analysts from JP Morgan have projected that a full-blown strike could cost the U.S. economy $5 billion each day. All right, why so much? It's because these ports handle an enormous volume of goods essential for daily life and business operations across the U.S. Everything from food, clothing, and electronics to cars and raw materials comes through these ports day in and day out. And when you stop that flow of goods, the ripple effect impacts nearly every sector of the economy. Logistics experts warn that backlogs created by even a short strike could take weeks, if not months, to clear. So higher shipping costs would likely be passed on to consumers, me and you, driving up prices for already expensive goods. And this is especially concerning for Americans who are already grappling with inflation in areas like housing, groceries, and fuel. So I think all of us. Now, the ports that could be affected by the strike are major hubs for U.S. trade, handling billions of dollars worth of goods every month. And I really want to harp on this because I don't think Americans realize this could literally cripple our economy, and it's only taking 45,000 dock workers to do it.
Exactly.
For example, in the 12 months leading up to June 30th,
Exactly.
2024, all of these seaports processed $37 billion worth of vehicle imports alone, according to S&P Global Market Intelligence. Auto parts, too, are a key import on the East Coast, especially those from Europe, which are harder to reroute than goods from China and other parts of Asia. You know, we're talking your BMWs, Mercedes, Mini Coopers, Jaguars, Ferraris, Lamborghinis. Every single European import ever or auto part, is coming in through the East Coast. And beyond cars, these ports are responsible for importing large quantities of machinery, fabricated steel, and precision instruments valued at over $97 billion combined. All of this could be delayed, impacting manufacturing, construction, and other industries that rely on these imports to keep their operations running smoothly. And it's not just imports. About 14% of all U.S. agriculture exports are handled by these ports as well, representing around 318 million in goods per week. This includes products like soybeans, chilled or frozen meats, and eggs. A strike would severely disrupt these exports, which rely on specialized containers like refrigerated units that cannot sit idle for long periods of time. And since we're talking about food, one of the most immediate concerns is the impact on food supply chains. A significant portion of the nation's food imports, including bananas, coffee, and cocoa, comes to these ports as well. And large volumes of coffee and cocoa, essential for businesses ranging from grocery stores to restaurants, would be delayed. So could you imagine all the angry Karens out there who are not getting their coffee, to include myself? Oh, and by the way, meat exports would also take a hit. Around $18 billion worth of beef and pork export markets, and the $5.8 billion poultry and egg export sectors. These products require refrigerated containers, which can't sit for extended periods of time. Even a short delay could lead to spoilage and massive financial losses for exporters. So according to the U.S. Meat Export Federation, about 45% of all U.S. pork exports and 35% of beef exports are shipped via East and Gulf Coast ports. And disruptions here could lead to significant backlogs once again, affecting not just U.S. consumers, but also global markets on U.S. agricultural products. So again, the implications here is not just we're affecting the United States. A lot of our partners are going to be extremely annoyed if they figure out that these port workers want more money and they're not getting it. And now our allies are like, hey, where's our bacon? Where's our eggs? Where's our soybeans? The implications here are massive. Oh, and by the way, pharmaceuticals and medical supplies, to me, is probably the biggest scare of all of this. It's not just food and cars that are at risk. These ports handle more than 91% of containerized imports and 69% of containerized exports of U.S. pharmaceutical products. If the strike goes ahead, it could disrupt the supply of life-saving medications, which are often transported through major ports like Norfolk, Virginia, and Charleston, South Carolina. And look, any slowdown here would have serious implications for hospitals, pharmacies, and patients across the U.S. About 1/3 of all containerized pharmaceutical imports enter the country through these two ports, and disruptions could lead to shortages in critical drugs. And look, it's political season, so let's talk about the political implications. The timing of this strike is absolutely crucial. It's set to happen just weeks before the U.S. presidential election, which could make it a major political issue. The Biden administration has not yet stepped in to broker a deal, a stark contrast to last year when the White House intervened in the West Coast port negotiations. This hands-off approach could backfire if the strike leads to visible economic damage, particularly as voters are already concerned about inflation and cost of living. And look, retailers who account for roughly half of all container volumes are particularly concerned. And look, many have already rushed to import holiday goods in anticipation of a strike. But delays and shortages could still disrupt crucial goods so close to the election could create political firestorms, especially if prices for everyday items like clothing, toys, and electronics spike due to supply chain issues. Now look, people, if the strike goes ahead, experts say the recovery process will be slow. For every day the ports are shut down, it could take 4 to 6 days to clear the resulting backlogs, according to analysts at Sea Intelligence, a shipping advisory firm. There are even warnings out there that a 1-week shutdown could take up to 6 weeks to recover from, creating lasting delays and driving up shipping costs. There are companies out there looking for alternative solutions, such as rerouting shipments through the West Coast ports or moving goods by air. However, these alternatives are often more expensive and less efficient, particularly for heavy or bulky items like cars or industrial machinery. And again, if the shipping costs go up, who do you think is going to pay for it?
The consumer. Yeah.
So look, I'm going to end this video with this. The potential strike by 45,000 union workers at U.S. East Coast and Gulf Coast ports could have a monumental impact on the economy, international trade, and even politics. From shortages of everyday...
Stock up on food and water. This the last one. This is what the union president said.
Well, I'll cripple you. I will cripple you.
On today's episode of What's Going On with
Now this is what he
will
said.
the ILA strike on October?
In today's world, I'll cripple you. I will cripple you.
On today's episode of What's Going On with
That's what he
Shipping,
said.
will the ILA strike on October 1st? A Mediterranean shipping company who put out a customer alert. They're saying that this
I wanna
may
get
not be
to-
resolved by September 30th negotiations. The ILA spokesman said USMX filed these charges 4 days. Another chunk of that goes to dues for the ILA to pay for their retirees and to come into the United States via other methods. And what Daggett,
The news every night. Boom,
Okay.
boom. Second week,
Okay, here we go.
guys who sell cars can't sell cars.
but you're looking at output.
Changing into the future.
This
They're not
is the
making millions
president
no more. They're making
of the union.
billions. And they're spending it fast as they make it. I want a piece of that for my men. Because when they made their most money was during COVID. When my men had to go to work on those piers every single day, when everybody stayed home and went to work. Not my men. They died out there with the virus. We all got sick with the virus. We kept them going. From Canada to Maine to Texas, Great Lakes, Puerto Rico, now the Bahamas, everybody went to work during COVID. Nobody stayed home. Well, I want to be compensated for that. I'm not asking for the world. They know what I want. They know what I want. And if they don't, no, then I have to go into the street and we have to fight for what we rightfully deserve. These people today don't know what a strike is.
Right.
When my men hit the streets from Maine to Texas, every single port will lock down.
Ooh.
You know what's going to happen? I'll
Ooh.
tell you. First week, be all over the news every night, boom, boom. Second week, guys who sell cars can't sell cars because the cars ain't coming in off the ships. They get laid off. Third week, malls start closing down. They can't get the goods from China. They can't sell clothes. They can't do this. Everything in the United States comes on a ship. They go out of business. Construction workers get laid off because the materials aren't coming in. The steel's not coming in. The lumber's not coming in. They lose their job. Everybody's hating the longshoremen now because now they realize how important our jobs are. Now I have the president screaming at me, I'm putting a Taft-Hartley on you. Go ahead. Taft-Hartley means I have to go back to work for 90 days. That's a cooling off period. Do you think when I go back to 90 days, those men are going to go to work on that pier? It's going to cost the companies money to pay their salaries. Well, they went from 30 moves an hour maybe to 8. They're going to be like this. Who's going to win here in the long run? You're better off sitting down and let's get a contract and let's move on with this world. In today's world, I'll cripple you. I will cripple you, and you have no idea what that means. Nobody does.
Okay.
I'm gonna end that video on that one. Stock up on food and water because he ain't playing. And when you say the poor workers can cripple, yes, they can cripple you because you won't get an egg. You won't see an egg in the grocery store. You will see empty shelves in the grocery store. Yeah, he can, and they will cripple us. We in some serious times. Anyway, like, share, and subscribe. Leave a comment because I don't understand why people can't hit the like button. Have a good night. I'm going to bed. I'm so sleepy. It's 3 a.m. Oh, it's almost 4 a.m. Good night.